Hello, everybody, and I hope you're having a great time there in Sweden. And I hope it continues to be a really successful afternoon for you all and into the evening as well. My name's Andrew Gadd. I've got an environmental consultancy called Footprint Services over in the UK. And for the past 7 or 8 years, I've been tracking the RDF exports from the UK to Northwest Europe, to Scandinavia, the SRF exports to Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, and indeed beyond. Some have gone over to America and India for a little while. Some of these things traveled too. So there's been a lot of activity in the market. And Niels has kindly asked me to put some slides together to show some of the key trends. And so I'm resorting to the miracle of modern technology and the record facility on Zoom. But I'm just able to show by this video some of the information which can then feed into your further discussions this afternoon. So without further ado, I will gladly stop showing my funny shaped head. It's not the first time I've said that. I mean more the kind of background, the virtual background on Zoom. Anyway, on to the slides. So without further ado, we will crack straight on. This is the RDF overview summary. We've got market size and share. Since 2010, in 2010, the market began in terms of exporting RDF, SRF from the UK. It rose and rose and rose and reached about 3 million, 3.5 million in 2016, 2017. And then due to a number of reasons, Brexit causing financial turmoil in foreign exchange rates, and we've got COVID in there and lockdowns, and we've got the war in Ukraine and energy costs and shipping costs and all the rest of it. So there's been a whole load of headwinds. The latest tonnage by the end of this year should be about 1.5 million tonnes, which is about half of what it had been, just under half of what it had been previously. But as I say, there's been year by year, there's been a whole series of things which have hampered the market. Currently, Sweden is the largest recipient of RDF from the UK. This data is from England, but that's about 90% of the overall RDF export, so this is strongly indicative of what's going on. Netherlands had been the largest outlet, but it's now at about 29%, and Sweden, as I say, is the largest. What we've got here is the market share information, and we've got Sweden there, which is currently in 2022, Sweden's on 38% over there. So Sweden has been rising in terms of market share over the years, strengthening its position. Netherlands, on the other hand, in terms of market share, had previously, before 2018, it had reached around getting on for 50%. It was around 44% in 2019, has fallen away, but there's been a degree of levelling off. Germany, on the other hand, had been a significant recipient of RDF from the UK, about 18% in 2018, but has fallen away. But again, there's been a degree of levelling off, so maybe that has bottomed out at about 7%. Norway, a little bit up and down, literally. By the time you get to Norway and Denmark, you're talking about smaller numbers relatively, and so there can be greater wobbles. Norway is about 4% at the moment, had been last year a high of 8% there, but it's down at 4% now. And again, similarly with Denmark, there's a degree of up and down, depending on, you can get big tonnages shifted in a given year that cause large variations. By others, we're talking about Eastern Europe, Southern Europe, and those outlets have remained fairly consistent and strong. So this is mostly relating to SRF rather than RDF. Your RDF is mostly going to Sweden, Netherlands, Germany, Norway, Denmark, well, primarily Sweden, Netherlands, Germany, some to Belgium there's been. Others, though, this is more into the realm of the SRF, and that's been fairly consistent. Number of notifiers, if I put it on the total, these are the number of companies who have been taking responsibility for the transfrontier shipment of the waste. And so it's been their name on the TFS documentation, and they've been managing that. Now, it started from a standing start in 2010. And so in 2010, there were 3 pioneering companies who said, okay, well, we'll give this a go. Year by year by year, it rose, and we got to about 57 companies in 2014. Then it fell away, even though, if you recall, the total tonnage continued rising to about 2017, 2018. But the number of players fell away, and to an extent that's not a bad thing. It's a consolidation. It's a recognition. Some of these 57 companies, I imagine, started to feel, well, this is all a lot of hard work, and all this filling in and documentation and paperwork and so on. This is more hard work than we really want to give ourselves. And so we will enter into some contractual arrangements with a broker, with an aggregator, and they can have that pain themselves. And so there was a degree of consolidation. It has tailed away some more since then, but it's potentially levelling off 26, 25. In Sweden, interestingly, looking at the number of notifiers in Sweden, that has remained remarkably consistent and strong. So we haven't seen the falling away, the tailing off in terms of the number of people prepared to send stuff to Sweden. However, we have seen falling away in the Netherlands. So companies, it remained fairly strong up until the 2016, and then it's fallen away. 2020, the waste import tax was put in place and fallen away. Same in Germany, significantly so, from 42 down to 5 in the latest year. So 42 in 2014, 42 companies. There were lots of companies sending stuff to Germany, and that's fallen away. To an extent with Germany, it seems it's largely because they had more waste themselves than they had the capacity for, so they were able to fill the incinerators more so with their own waste, and in fact, to an extent, there was indications that it was being exported, so they became a bit of an RDF exporter as well, not to the same degree that the UK has been. And so Germany has been increasingly tight as a market, and they've received, if they do need additional RDF, they've received stuff from Italy and Poland and so on. Number of notifiers in Norway has gone up and down. It's currently down to 2, and Denmark has remained fairly consistent over the past few years, but down by 1/3 on what it had been. So in some countries, there's fewer people who are sending stuff, RDF, to those countries, but particularly in Sweden and also in others, which is, as I say, the SRF going to, mostly SRF, going to countries, Eastern Europe, Southern Europe, that's remained fairly strong as well. It's interesting when you look at the geographical split of the RDF and SRF. Again, we can clearly see what this chart shows is it shows clearly the RDF, which is the teal coloured material. So if we just dwell on the RDF on its own for the moment, that is mostly Northwest Europe, Denmark, Sweden, Norway. So it's staying in that general area around there. But if I focus on the SRF, then you can see that is going much further afield. We've got Portugal and Spain and Cyprus and Greece and so on. So that's going further afield. Bulgaria, some stuff goes to Latvia and so on. Now, in terms of market share with notifiers, just the reason I've done it like this, it gives a slightly different view to just looking at lines and charts and graphs. In 2016, this word cloud, this is based on the market share, this is based on the volume of material sent, and you can see in 2016 your Biffa is big there, and a perfectly appropriate red colour for Biffa there, and you've got Suez there. So you've got your FCC, you've got your big players, your big domestic waste companies who were the ones powering ahead and leading this market in 2016. And you've got your smaller players here, at that time Bertling and ProBio, just small little labels there. Anjusia was quite big. Of course, Anjusia is still quite big. N&P were quite big. So 2016, as we go through, I just invite you just keep your eye on the Biffers and the Suez, and also the Bertlings and the ProBios, and we're just looking at the change, the shift in the dynamics as we go through. So 2017, 2018, Geminor particularly prominent there in 2018. Suez and Biff are still quite big there. Bertling's font size getting a little bigger, ProBio down there as we go through 2019, and we can start to see here that Geminor still prominent, Biffa and Suez beginning to diminish in terms of relative size. Bertling, ProBio are starting to get quite noticeable. 2020, 2021, 2022. So there's a significant difference. Geminor is in the lead, in the pole position in a way, but Biffa, Suez have significantly reduced their exports in their own name, but you've got ProBio, you've got Bertling. These are now significant players. And so, as I say, that's that shift, the shift I'm talking about from the producers to the brokers and the aggregators. What we've got here is looking at RDF and SRF on a rolling 3-month comparative basis. And I might need to explain that just a little more. So, by 3-month comparative basis, I mean if I focus on the 2022 August data at the end there, what I've got in there is the difference between June, July, August in 2022 and June, July, August in 2021. Okay, in other words, that 3-month comparison, is it higher now than it was a year ago, or is it lower? And the reason I'm going for 3 months, you could say, well, wouldn't it be more sensible to do a 12-month comparison? That would be more normal. Trouble with the 12-month comparison is it takes so long before you start to see the shift and the trend. So if you take a 3-month comparison, it's much more responsive to be able to see things as they are starting to happen, to see the trends at an earlier stage. And we can see here, if I just put it on the RDF, if I focus, so we've got the teal coloured there. So obviously towards the left of the chart there in the 2020s, it was significantly down. RDF exports were significantly down, and that was to do with the waste import tax in the Netherlands. It was to do with COVID. The RDF export market on a year-on-year basis was really struggling. It looked like for a little while it was picking up, because we were coming out of COVID and we all thought, phew, thank goodness that's behind us. And then we all went back into lockdown and all that kind of stuff. And in the UK, we had the pingdemic, and so we've got a slowdown there. Now, what's interesting then, over the past few months, you can see at the very right-hand side there, the right-hand side, it looks like potentially there is a picking up of the RDF. And that is potentially because of, paradoxically, because of recession across Western Europe, Northwest Europe, or risk of recession at the very least, that there is a greater need for imported RDF because domestic manufacturing waste supplies have fallen. Okay, so in Germany or in the Netherlands or whatever, they may need more stuff coming in from outside because their own indigenous waste streams are falling because of the recession or risk of recession. Conversely, the SRF had been quite promising as we came out of what we would consider to be the COVID era, and that was looking increasing, but over the past few months, the SRF has fallen away, possibly again because of recession, and in recession or risk of recession, then there is less need for cement and construction, and so SRF may be constrained. So we've got those two linked but opposing dynamics possibly going on. And over the next year then, it may well be that the RDF volumes increase. And just very briefly on this confusing chart, but this is just to make one point particularly. If I hover over the Netherlands, again, this is rolling 3-month comparative data. So we can see towards the left-hand part of the chart, in 2020, it was down. That was largely because of the import tax. But towards the very right-hand part of the chart, those three, or the latest 3 months, it's starting to move into the positive. That'll be interesting. This is the Netherlands, focusing on the Netherlands. And it could be that there is a return to growth for RDF heading to the Netherlands. And the significance of that is simply that there is that's more significant than if there was a rise of exports to, let's say, Norway or Denmark, where the market is much smaller. The potential market in the Netherlands is much more significant. And so if there are signs of growth of stuff going to the Netherlands, that has greater significance. So drawing it to a close, maturing market is showing resilience in challenging times, and these are indeed challenging times, but some people have written off the RDF export market, but it's showing resilience. There was a wide variety of operators in the heady early days, followed by a degree of consolidation to professional operators, and that's not to be unkind to the people in the early days. What I'm saying there is it has been consolidated into the realm of the companies who are saying, we do this. This is what we professionally do. Whereas perhaps some of the earlier companies thought they might give it a go and then realised, it wasn't their thing. The TFS administration and so on. Quite possibly SRF is likely to be constrained if economies are struggling, whereas RDF imports may actually increase to the Netherlands and Germany due to reduced domestic waste sources. And then logically, I would suggest it's sensible to have a mix of SRF and RDF in the exports, a balanced portfolio to outlets. And that lends itself more to the aggregators and the brokers rather than the producers. Because the aggregators and the brokers, they can manage those relationships. They can manage the RDF and SRF waste streams that they're in contract to provide the service that they need to provide at a cost that meets everybody's requirements. So thank you, and I wish you all a very good and profitable afternoon, and enjoy yourselves there. All the very best. Thanks then. Bye now.